If you already think silver is better than gold or gold is better than silver, I probably am not going to be able to change your mind. I won't even try to. But I might try to change your mind on what to compare them against. Primarily, this is a channel about gold. Silver when it makes sense. The context really determines where silver fits in here. If we're just stacking as a savings model, well, premiums come into play. If we're looking at precious metals as an investment though, we're looking at performance. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a look at which metal is better based on actual performance and based on differing contexts and differing expectations. Now this is a topic that rarely gets discussed around here in practical terms, but we're gonna try to change some of that. And I'm hoping some of what I'm about to say will actually surprise you. Before we get back to it, if you're looking for gold or silver, check out SD Bullion. New customers even get gold and silver for spot. It's sdbullion.com/new. So I'm going to come at this with two separate opinions from two separate angles. If you're into precious metals or you're getting into precious metals for general reasons, hedge against risk on assets, protecting some wealth against inflation, being able to save more efficiently, or you just like shiny things, get both. My point here is that you don't have to make a choice between them. It's not all gold or all silver. You pick your allocation based on what's comfortable for you right now, and then you dial that in as you go. So that was the practical side. If you're looking at precious metals as an investment and you want to get your money into the one with the biggest upside, gold or silver, find somebody you trust and ask them to slap you. This is not Bitcoin, it was never intended to be, but most of the bad information around here, the doom and the urgent warnings, the crazy forecasts that never actually happen, they position metals and silver mostly as assets that could just explode in value at any point. And if you want to set yourself up for failure, that's a really good way to go about it. So starting out with the idea of buying gold and silver for traditional savings reasons. Now, I prefer gold, but like I said, you don't have to choose between them. Just buy both where each makes sense. Now, I can tell you pretty quickly why I prefer gold though, and why it's my focus here. It's mainly because I started this channel in 2020. And the primary reason that it's so heavily focused on gold is pretty simple. It looked like the better way to save in the climate that we were going into was going to be gold. And look, that part was all just a guess. There was potential economic slowdown ahead of us, and silver is more heavily affected when manufacturing cools. But another one is that big money tends to flow into gold first. It's the first mover. Central banks buy gold, so it just made sense at the time. Now, none of that would tell me don't buy silver. It would just say buy more gold. But what was more tangible than that was that the premiums on silver just went crazy. And as someone who's been buying gold and silver for 16 years, 12 years at the time, it was easy to see that premiums on silver and on fractional gold had immediately jumped. And I just wasn't comfortable giving 25 to 50% away in premiums for the silver that I like to buy, or 16 to 23% for that fractional gold. So I was shifting out of silver and I was looking for new fractional gold options right when I was starting this channel. Actually, right when I was starting this channel, I didn't know what I was doing. It was a weird time. Premiums, though, have been coming way down over the past 12 to 14 months. So my take today is a lot different than it was the prior 4 years even. I actually did buy some silver again 6 months ago, and if we see another drop, I'll probably buy some more. Now, factors that we can see today, well, we know central banks buy gold to hold as a reserve asset. They do not buy silver in that way. So there's this huge demand for gold. Central banks are buying something like 30% of global annual production of gold. That's obviously a big driver for continued price there. In silver's court, you have things like manufacturing need. We know it has a role in solar energy, lots of things really. We could do that all day. You could come up with advantages for either metal, but we wouldn't really get anywhere. There's really no way to see what happens in the future. So we need to look at past performance if we really want to compare them. The way to do that would be to come up with a common starting point. Easier said than done. We can't go back to the beginning of time, but we could go back to 2011 when both metals took off. That would be the peak of the prior rally. And the obvious problem with that is that silver is still down 42% from its high in 2011, where gold is up 26% from that mark. So what else could we look at? Well, we could potentially look at the 2013 low. That was after both metals crashed. Silver is up about 50% since then, and gold is up about 100% in that same time frame. So in either of those views, gold is doing a lot better than silver. So I like that kind of comparison because we're only looking at facts. We're lining up both on the same prior rally to see if one truly has performed the other. We just saw that one has. But I don't like this comparison because it looks at them as if they are typical investments, and that's just not how I see them. Once we start down that path, it's kind of a slippery slope. People will say things like, well, silver has more potential because it hasn't reached its all-time high again, or they'll make some assumption that it has more potential going forward because it hasn't done as well to date. Now, I can understand that opinion, but it isn't logical. It definitely isn't true. It's like applying card counting logic to a commodity market. There's just no known quantity here. And if we're placing bets, the odds of silver making a 78% jump to get back to that $50 all-time high in the short term, well, they're not very good. It's something that's only happened twice in the past few hundred years. Silver can't get a break here. Well, that brings us back to thinking of metals in the traditional sense as a way to lock in wealth, to hedge against the dollar, and simply save. If you look at it in that regard, there really are only two primary considerations, and it's not necessarily how it's performed in the past or how you think it's going to perform in the future. It's a lot simpler than that. There are really only two primary considerations. You have opportunity costs, which is just premium in terms of percentage, and then you have how much you have available to spend. So I think I started this out, or at least early on, I mentioned that gold has a lower premium than silver, and that had a lot to do with my choices when I started this channel. Well, it doesn't matter what product we're talking about here. Generic gold, generic silver, American silver eagles versus American gold eagles, or these buffaloes. You could look at silver versus gold Canadian maple leafs, comparable semi-numismatics from Perth Mint. It really doesn't matter. Silver premiums are just higher. It makes perfect sense. It takes about the same amount of work to produce that silver swan as it does the gold. That effort's going to be lower in terms of percentage though, because the gold is worth 80 times more. So if you have $2,500 to spend, you're going to have a lower opportunity cost if you buy gold. Now, if you have $75 to spend, you just don't have good options to buy gold. And I would say that that second one, how much money you have available, really wins out here. So people who buy silver because that's what their current budget allows are just being practical, and I don't think that that's really a decision at that point. At least not a decision between gold and silver. It's a decision to move some dollars to precious metals in whatever way makes sense. So look, I really think buying both covers the practical side of things. It also covers a little bit of the what if. What if silver really does have more room to run because it's only at 60% of its all-time high? Well, like I said before, that kind of run has only happened twice that I'm aware of, but it could definitely happen. So big potential, low likelihood. The way to cover both bases there is to just buy some of each. So a quick note here, and a reason that I've gone into so much detail on performance, how gold is beating silver, is that it's really easy to bump into people talking about the potential without understanding the likelihood. So silver squeezes were great examples. Lots of people here on YouTube were telling us that was silver's big moment. And there were two of them, so big moments. And it was going to go to the moon. Well, I sold my silver on both squeezes, 1 and 2. It just didn't make sense. With GameStop, the idea was that buying the stock would raise the price because it squeezed the investors who were shorting it. Well, buying physical silver just wouldn't do the same thing any more than going into a GameStop store to buy a bunch of games and figurines would, or whatever they sell, Funko Pops and headsets. That kind of advice, pitching silver as an investment, has proven to be dangerous over and over. Now take all that history away, and I really do think it makes sense to buy both gold and silver. That covers the practical bases and the what-if bases at the same time. Now I can't tell you what's best for you. You can see that I'm heavier on gold personally, but that's because I'm more practical than wishful, maybe. It's based on practical reasons like lower premiums, central bank buying for gold, and past performance. I just don't ignore the charts. As for future performance, though, we really don't have anything or anyone to consult. So to the extent that I like to gamble, really there are other things I'm more interested in betting on, but I would like to have a little bit of silver too, just in the case we ever get to see that party again. Now, either way, look, locking in some savings by converting dollars to precious metals makes a lot of sense. White metal, yellow metal, both beat green paper. Let's call it good there. Let us know what you think. Is one better than the other? Do you buy both? Do you only buy one? Let us know, and let us know why. And while you're in the comments, be sure to hit that like button if you found any of this interesting. Be sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on if you want to hear more on the topic. And if you're still here, thanks again for watching. I always appreciate your time. Take care.